Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Why Community Matters webinar series. Today, we're speaking with Shannon Ewing from Presearch. Hello, Shannon.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Shannon is going to talk to us about managing a global community. My name is Judy Gordon. I'm the VP of Marketing for OmniSparx, and I'm here with Joe Hernandez.
Hi, everybody. I'm the founder of Chicago Blockchain Project and the Voice of Blockchain Conference in Chicago.
Before we get started, I just want to give you a little bit more information about your sponsors. OmniSparx is a community management platform driving crypto project growth. The Chicago Blockchain Project is a trusted resource helping to build Chicago into the blockchain capital of the world. Join us at the Voice of Blockchain September 30th and October 1st here in Chicago.
Yep, it's voiceofblockchain.com. And then we have the next ones that are going to be coming up, or are we coming straight to the questions?
Yeah, let's go straight to the questions. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't we start with an introduction? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your project, and
Sure. So Presearch is a decentralized search engine, and we like to think of it as what would happen if Google actually said thank you. So we are designed by our community. Anyone in the user base is allowed to and invited to submit different packets and APIs. So we can be designed entirely open source. So there's no more algorithm hiding behind the curtain. We are on ERC20 tokens, so we incentivize people to search, and then those tokens are directly purchased by our advertisers. So you get rewarded for each search that you conduct, and then the advertisers buy those rewards from you. So rather than $3 billion being kind of kept by one company for the value that we provide to platforms, we're actually getting some of the value in return. And so it's been a really exciting project. You know, the decentralized space is really nascent, and being a search engine allows us to be a little bit more open. So we're kind of thinking it as a little bit of a side road into crypto, that we can get some, the grandmother down in Florida who wouldn't necessarily buy tokens on an exchange can start earning these through the platform, start trading them, start figuring out how the whole blockchain space works, and do it in a really kind of gentle, easy, I'm doing these kinds of projects and conducting these searches every day anyway kind of fashion. And it's been a wild ride. We opened up our beta to the public in April of last year, and since then have garnered about 850,000 users. So we're excited.
Oh, that's great. So if I wanted to search, would I go to presearch.io, or how would I find .org, presearch.org. Okay,
yeah.
Great. So you said your community contributes. Can you tell us a little bit more about your community, what it's like, who's involved?
They have been hands down my favorite part of the project. It's so fun watching this community come together. I think, the blockchain space, the people that are in it right now are a wonderful group to begin with, because they really see alternatives to, kind of the current offerings. So people are really forward thinking, but once they get involved about something they really care about, they take it and run with it. So we were able to attract 850,000 users without any advertising. We have done that entirely off of referral programs from our community. I think our Telegram community at last check was about 16,000 people, and that's in this terrible bear market that we've been in.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, at peak, we were close to 20,000. And these are people that wake up every day, wish each other a good morning, ask what they had for breakfast, like people around the world that are really connected to one another because they care about the project that we're working on together and cultivating it together. So our community is fantastic. If you look at kind of similar web and Alexa type sites, we shift a little bit. So we go anywhere from having Mexico as being our highest user base to places in Argentina, Brazil, Australia. It really kind of bounces around. So we have people from all over the world contributing and using the project. And it's been really fun to see what different people care about and how they want to interact. And they've been the drivers of the project. Ultimately, we will end up as a DAO. So we will be a decentralized autonomous organization that basically the leadership right now is helping to put kind of fraud prevention in place and like set up the marketplace, but we want to hand it over to the community entirely. So it's been fun listening to the community this as we put the framework in place before we give it over entirely.
Oh, okay, great. So your community is 24/7. How do you guys manage that?
Well, my CEO and friend Colin Pape did something very wise early on and brought in community managers from within the Telegram community. So people that were really vocal, people that were answering questions just independently, that wanted to help the project. They have been our biggest proponents from the beginning, and Colin empowered people from around the world in different time zones to contribute. So he brought them on as our community managers. So we have friends in Greece and Vienna and friends in Gabon. We have friends, you know, on the East Coast and the West Coast. So that's how we manage community, is by taking people that already cared about the project and bringing them on board.
Yeah, we've heard that from a few different people. That it comes to mind. Tor from the Enigma community was talking about their ambassador program specifically, and he said, "Yeah, we aren't actually out there looking for ambassadors and telling them what to do. Particularly, we're looking more for those people who are so engaged with our idea and what we're building that they already are really ambassadors, and just giving them the title."
Exactly. And, you know, decentralizing this means empowering people that aren't already on board with the company. You know, it means empowering people from the audience itself. So I think that is a natural fit.
So how do you keep everyone coordinated or keep everyone on message? Is that an issue that you guys face?
Yeah, a lot of trying to be generous with each other's time zone differences and scheduling meetings, and keeping on the same page. A lot of Telegram chatting to make sure that, you know, people can catch up on messages. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, because we're so connected these days, it's not that hard. You know, Telegram's been a total gift in that we can keep, you know, group conversations going pretty easily. So Presearch, at least the teams that I'm involved with, we have like 4 or 5 different community groups that are going at different times, some talking about advertising, some talking about, you know, managing the community itself. So there's just basically constant dialogue going, that we're keeping each other in the loop and sharing insights and updates and ahas.
Oh, okay. So is it that people, sort of your community managers, or the people you've just do different things or choose to work on different parts of the project? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah, Colin is a big proponent of having kind of like umbrella entrepreneurs. So we have, you know, an overarching goal and then a whole bunch of people that are empowered to kind of take things and run with them and see how it goes. So we do have people that pick up different roles and run with them for a little while and see how it works, and we kind of come back together. So we're not, I don't know if the community here today is familiar with the model of holacracy, where it's a completely flat organization and everyone's just in charge of their own little projects. We're not totally flat, but we really are empowered to just test things out. You know, this is an open source project and the community is invited to collaborate with us. So even people that aren't technical community managers, they can, you know, they can submit packets. You know, if you search on presearch.org right now, we have like a Wikipedia packet, we have a CoinMarketCap packet. So if you search through our portal for a specific token, it'll show a CoinMarketCap little synopsis at the beginning, and that was submitted to somebody, you know, by someone from the community. So we're really embracing the open source model and just empowering people to give things a try and rewarding them when it works.
Okay.
You know, that makes me think, like, what are the tools then that you use, and how do you direct people? Like, what's an onboarding process for somebody who's a participator and not necessarily employee? And especially globally, when you have language constraints and all these time constraints, so forth.
Sure. Well, that's the wonderful thing about open source, right? Is that it's more of a contributor than actually having to onboard someone, right? That they're just going to continue giving to the project and helping further it because they care about it. So it's really been wonderful. You know, like, we've definitely come across people that deserve kind of bonuses, or we'll give them some extra tokens for just saying like thank you for being a rock star. But it really is just kind of individual contributors 1,000 times over. So that's been easy and fun.
Oh, cool. So how do you manage, so brought up languages, how do you manage languages? Do you have multi-language support? Yeah.
Well, this is when, it's unfortunate but true that we have a very easy hand dealt to us by being native English speakers. So we do have a lot of people from around the world that do speak English that contribute to our community and then offer to go and do translation services. So we have people raising their hands all the time saying, let me translate this to German, let me translate this to Korean. And with platforms like Fiverr, it's really wonderful to be able to verify and just, find somebody to be an extra set of eyes on all of those translations, and then reach out to new people who can help contribute to the project for lower amounts and make sure that we're touching everyone. But it is a challenge, especially being a search engine that's applicable the world round. So it's hard to be, representative of 146 different languages at any given time. But again, just really incentivizing the community to be active members and to contribute to what we're working on has been really successful for us.
So tell me more about Fiverr. Are you familiar with Fiverr? Fiverr.
Yeah. We're talking about the Freelance Network, Fiverr, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So it's Fiverr, I believe, or Fiverr, one of the two.com. And you can find anything from graphic design and logos to translation services to business consulting. There's, 1,000 different services offered on there, and a lot of them start at $5.
Yeah, it's so good for little graphic things where you can't hire a person to be on your team. And you don't know if that person that you like is going to be available to do this one 2-3 hour thing, but you can just get it for $15-20 usually. It's a great service.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you have a lot of people participating in your community and your development. How do you track who's doing a good job or how people have contributed?
I think a lot of times that's just kind of that it just rises to the top, right? That if you see somebody's name repeatedly in your Telegram, helping to hold the community guidelines, helping to welcome newbies, after a while, you just notice who's been really intentional in contributing, and you can start having conversations with them offline, see if they want to contribute at a higher level, if they're really just happy doing what they're doing out of the goodness of their heart, but don't want to commit to anything greater. It really is just kind of, an open door policy that you can come to us if you're interested, but more than anything, actions speak the loudest. So if we see you showing up every day, if we see you really representing us in a way that is helpful and that echoes the mission and the heart of our project, we're eventually going to reach out and say thank you and just see where you're coming from and what you're interested in.
Okay, great. So legal issues. Legal issues can be different across the globe. How do you guys manage that as you think about managing your community?
That is a good question and a tough one to answer. It really depends on what we're talking about, right? So verging out of blockchain and a little bit more into cryptocurrencies, the whole thing about selling tokens across international boundaries, it can be tricky. Trying to figure out, obviously, the U.S. is being some of the strictest regulators at the moment. So starting with a really big market and trying to figure out what is allowed there, and then hoping that if we focus on some of the strictest regulation, then some of the more open communities will also be their needs met that way. So I think token economics is the trickiest part to address legally. When it comes to, things that different aspects of the search engine itself, obviously that's becoming a really big conversation to have with the GDPR across Europe, with different restrictions in certain Asian countries. It's tricky trying to manage all of those things at the same time. Andreas Antonopoulos, who's a wonderful contributor to our community, talks about how you either have to follow every law or no laws. And Unfortunately, many of us are more constricted to following as many of them as we possibly can and being respectful. So just again, reaching out to people around the world and saying, you know, how is this in your country? What are some things that we should watch out for? One of the great things is, you know, having the people that we have in Europe makes it easy for them to say things are a little bit different in Germany than they are in Austria, or things are a little bit different here, and just continuing to kind of crowdsource the information, because we are not going to be able to hire attorneys in every country to make sure that we are you know, touching every base possible. So, you know, this is another great opportunity for the community to be your biggest advocate and just say, you know, here's something to look into, or here's something to keep an eye on, and letting the audience really help be the wind at your back.
Are there any other tips that you would give to someone looking to start a global community like you've done? How did you kick it off? How did you get so many people on your Telegram channel?
Yeah, so as I said at the outset, our referral program just took flight. We were completely amazed. So we had a private beta that launched in December of 2017. We built that slowly but surely. We were approving every single user manually. That built up to about 30 or 40,000 by the time we hit April. And that had a lot to do.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask how you found those people. How did you find
Yeah, it had a lot to do with grassroots promoting. Okay. So we attended a bunch of events. We shook a lot of hands. We kissed a lot of babies. We just made sure that we were out there being a service. So one thing that I think was really tricky about that timing, it was great timing in some senses, especially in fundraising, but it was tricky timing to be promoting and launching a project, because that's when the market was at its peak, and there were a lot of projects that didn't have very high integrity and people that were coming into the space for not necessarily the right reasons, which meant that going to a lot of events, people really had their guard up. You know, it was hard to know who was a scammer, who was there for the, you know, the true ethos of the decentralized movement. So you basically just had to show up again and again and again and just keep saying, you know, we're here, we believe, we support. We sponsored a fair amount of events to just, you know, say we want to help spread this information. There's a couple of events with our friend Kurt Kumar, who operates out of LA. He does really discounted ticket prices so that everyone can attend, because I think for a long time we kept saying we want Main Street adoption of blockchain technologies, and then we were charging $1,500 a ticket, so that makes it tricky. So he was offering $99 tickets and free chicken tikka masala, and he was offering, you know, fractional Bitcoin to children to help bring parents and get the kids learning how to trade. So sponsoring people that also care about the community was really powerful for us. And again, my friend and CEO, Colin, is wonderful in that he cares so much about the community that it just really boiled down to how can we help? So my job description as community manager is literally go be awesome. So my job is to go find projects that are solving problems, figure out how we can help solve those problems that they're, you know, do they need a UI engineer, or do they need data analytics? You know, like how can our network help them? But also then just going and helping the community itself. How can we, you know, a search engine is the community service. So how can we live those ethics out in the broader world and just help everyone that we come across that are here for the right reasons? So we did a lot of boots on the ground to start with, a lot of events. And then once we opened the public beta in April, we offered a referral program. So I think it was 40 tokens per referral or something. It was not massive, but just empowered our community, you know, similar to kind of like open network marketing projects. You know, I kind of hesitate to associate with that, but it really is empowering the people who are your biggest advocates. If they love your project and they've been telling their mom and the people at work and their boyfriends about it anyway, why not say thank you? And that's what we did. And that's when we saw this massive uptick in people in countries that we hadn't even had boots on the ground yet, where people were just really excited about an alternative that could be private, that could be open source, that could be, you know, empowering the users themselves. And it just caught like wildfire. So we are huge advocates of empowering the people who are going to be, you know, your user base, basically, because they're the ones that care about you the most.
Are there countries or areas of the world where it's very popular that surprised you, or?
Yeah, Mexico was a big one. We haven't done any events down there and yet, were coming, but that was huge. I mean, all across Latin America, we've gotten massive data, like massive user upticks, and that shifts a lot. It's interesting to watch each month as the users kind of move around the world. But yeah, we are well represented in East Africa, all across Europe. So it's been really interesting watching the fluctuations as well, as, you know, as people kind of adopt and tell their friends, and, you know, there's a couple of influencers that pick it up and all of a sudden there's this big mushroom effect somewhere. So it's fun. I recommend other projects taking a look at their website analytics and seeing who's visiting them.
Yeah.
Are you, have you put any assignment of the why Mexico go up? Like, once you saw it and it surprised you, did you go look and say, well, what was the thing that caused this feedback loop here? Or was it political? Was it just a general cultural thing? Or,
you know, a lot of the feedback, I charted it in the very early stages when we were still in our private beta. We had, you know, just a small hurdle to get involved. You had to answer a question about why you wanted to be a part of it. And again, in 2017, there were plenty of people who said that they just wanted to generate tokens. But it was really interesting to see people saying, I want a private alternative on my search engine. I want to be thanked for the value I'm providing. I want to contribute, you know, to an open source project like this. I really care about the team. So I recommend projects doing that as well, as when they capture the email for the beta invite, go ahead and ask your users why they're interested, because graphing that out and seeing who was interested for what reasons, and then watching that kind of demographically change and spread throughout the world is really great. For us, it was easier because of the referral program. We could kind of trace things back to that first person who then spawned 40 new users, and find ways to reach out to them and just say, hey, thanks so much. And please, this is all completely private. You know, we don't track any of your search information. We just have your email address so that we can track the tokens that you're earning. So just to be clear, nothing that you're doing on the platform is ever recorded. We just know what kind of tokens you've been generating based on your activity. So to be able to reach out to some of those influencers and just see what was going on and what they cared about, what they were latching onto, has been really great feedback. So I recommend other projects doing similar things for tracking.
Okay.
you know, I'm also curious about the tool that you actually use for that, because you know, when you're starting this up and you're thinking, hey, maybe we'll get 100 people, maybe we'll get 100,000 people. What are the tools that you use that allow you to scale quickly to accept those emails and also to have them answer a survey? Like, I mean, me personally, I like to use Zapier and like an Airtable form and just, hey, people put in information and then we zap it back. But did you guys develop something part of the system to do the auto replies, or?
Yeah. My dev team, I should defer to them because I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what they built, but a lot of it was managed in-house to begin with. You know, I think we've learned some of the painful lessons that a lot of blockchain projects seem to be learning, and that we could do so much more, so much faster if we would start relying on each other and using more of each other's tools to kind of act as widgets for one another. But my team is just a really feisty group out of a small town north of Toronto. They're just, they're real do-it-yourselfers. So they built a lot of this stuff from the ground up. And that was one of the reasons that we stayed private beta for so long, is that we just simply wanted to make sure that the users had a good experience, and we weren't being able to keep up with the scale of how many people were coming to the project. So we really did have to kind of, you know, meter them out. Otherwise, we would have overwhelmed our servers and people wouldn't have had wouldn't have had a good experience. So we captured a lot of that stuff in-house. For a long time, this is kind of a funny quirk of the project, for a long time, everyone in the company was copied on the info@presearch.io email address. So we all had transparency into who was signing up, why they were signing up, where they were coming from. And that was what allowed me to take a deeper look at what some of the reasonings were and kind of chart across time what people were really coming to us for. But Zapier sounds like a great resource. I think, again, we should all be served by asking each other some more questions moving forward, because a lot of this stuff we just took on our own shoulders and did manually. And for a long time, we were managing our fraud manually, which is no small task when you've got, hundreds of thousands of users coming through.
Yeah, and is it the same with token distribution, the referral program? Did you guys build that software in-house, or was that? Yeah.
Yeah. And as I continued attending events and meeting all these great projects, there were all these people who had, complete one-stop plug-in projects where you could just like work off their platform. They'd manage all of the token distribution, all of the fund exchanges, everything was completely plug and play. And we found out about that after we gone through all of the headache of building it all and making sure nothing was broken. And during the time that we were actually wrapping up and starting to distribute the tokens, wrapping up the token generation event, I think Colin was sleeping on average of about 3 hours a night, just, constantly checking Telegram, constantly making sure that the systems were in place, because you become a de facto financial institution. This is scary stuff. You now have tens of thousands of, account holders, basically, that you need to make sure that you're protecting. So we built it all by hand. And luckily now there's a whole bunch of really wonderful projects out there that people can build on top of.
Okay, great. You've given us a great insight into how you built your community. Is there anything else any other advice you would give someone just starting out and wanting to do what you did?
Yeah, I think I just can't harp on it enough to say, really listen to your audience. There's a book called The 4 Steps to the Epiphany that is really wonderful, talking about how you can design from the customers back to the project, rather than designing a project and then hoping that the customers really care about it. We stayed really iterative throughout the project design process, which can be scary and really hard to manage, but also meant that we were flexible to feedback and really listening to the needs of the people who were contributing the most. So, just as Instagram started out trying to be kind of like a Foursquare check-in platform, and then found out later that people really just cared about the photo processing, listen to your audience and find ways that you can still pivot, because we have all of these wonderful platforms now that allow people to give us feedback. And not all of it's going to be wonderful, but it's really powerful when you can empower people to feel heard and that they actually got to see their feedback integrated into your project, that they become your biggest proponents.
So how are you? So we talked a little bit about that. Are you leveraging Telegram? How are you getting that feedback today?
Yeah, Telegram is by far our #1 platform. I mean, we have a wonderful information person now. That info now goes to my colleague Lindsay, who's fantastic and manages just floods of information each day. We have leave feedback as a link on the portal website, so people we ask every time we bring somebody new in, please let us know what you like, what you don't like, what we can improve upon. So yeah, it's just really it's asking for people to contribute.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's very good to hear your views on the global community. Very excited to see where you guys are getting to as well. It's a pretty noble cause, I'd say.
Thanks. We're happy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Great. Thanks.
Have a great day,
everybody.
Bye, everyone.